I apologize ahead of time. This video is so choppy, and some of this was like in my car, some of this was there. It's like so much information is going and going and going that I've had to reshoot the video, recut the video, do everything because of the fact that this situation has gotten so out of hand. And I think it's not cool. So this whole blerd thing versus Rob, and how I started seeing all types of channels just dogpile and was like, yeah, and we're going to promote our channel because he don't support black people and stuff like that. And I'm like, wow. And this is me as black dude. And there's some stuff that blerd said that honestly was disingenuous. I've seen some people sit there and I've seen people say, oh, Rob shouldn't have said nothing and he should have just let it ride. And then other people like, he should have said something faster. He should have. Nobody's going to know how to respond. You need to defend yourself. You feel you need to defend yourself. You're going to defend yourself. Okay. That's just how it works. And people are like, well, Rob didn't say nothing until he was called out. Okay. It's the same thing when people say they're sorry. How many times do you have to say sorry or I apologize or this was a different time before people are satisfied? You are the one who comes up with your decision and what you decide is right, real, whatever. Now, where I feel, and I'm going to get to certain things because there's something that I've noticed that's really agitating too. But I'll get to that later on because like I said, I'm recutting the video and stuff again. But I first want to say this. When you're dealing with this, you're calling out somebody and you don't have like all of the information or everything, because it felt like blerd was like taking things and going, yeah, this is it now. This is it. And I'm catching all these black people say, well, he called this FUBU. And I'm like, okay, he doesn't like Milestone. And for us, by us, FUBU was huge for the culture at one time. Nobody wears FUBU now. Milestone is super important. Even he acknowledged that, but Milestone didn't relate to him. And I seen people do videos where they were like, well, I grew up with Milestone. It's because you weren't around black people. I know black people who read comic books that don't care for Milestone. Never have. And I know black people who did. I know some white folks that I'm friends with who read Milestone. The funny thing is when it comes to that, for example, like when he mentioned the other stuff and they're like, it's wild that he called it FUBU. I'm like, and they're like, it wasn't. And I seen one dude spawn something. I can't remember his name. I watched his thing where he was like, he was going from an approach of probably just from his experience. He doesn't understand because he rides Marvel and DC a lot, even though Milestone technically is DC. But the thing is that y'all are condemning him for not liking it. And even if you say, no, they're not, they're just saying he shouldn't. It doesn't matter. He doesn't like it. He's allowed not to like it. And it doesn't make him racist because he doesn't like it. And it didn't resonate with him. To be frank with you, a lot of Milestone comics don't resonate with me. Some of them do. Guess what? In Marvel, some of the Marvel comics don't resonate with me. Some of them do. Same with DC and many other comics. It's called being a human and having things that you like and dislike like any other person. But it just was wild to me because I've seen people jump on and pile on and say he's all this stuff. And like I said, I'll get to the blerd thing, but calling out somebody without all the info and just spitting out mess and stuff like saying most of your audience is white. I have YouTube. It'll tell you where like a woman is, if it was a woman or a man. It'll tell you maybe the time of day, maybe a state, but it doesn't say what race they are. But, you know, little weird stuff like that. Like I said, I'll get to that. But I seen a lot through this day with like Zero and stuff like that. And I'm in the car waiting to go somewhere. But what I'm noticing, people are going for the culture, because we always say for the culture, even though half the time we don't even take care of each other in the culture. There's a reason why we're called crabs in a barrel. Just saying. Because when somebody come up, somebody wants to pull him down. And admittedly, I do feel like some folks want to pull him down because he's the top YouTuber and they want it because they're doing it and they're following that same narrative. But I digress. I think this honestly kind of makes us look bad. And when it comes to blerd, that started this all. In honesty, he said he talked to Rob a little, but he showed like a tweet or something, if I can remember correctly. But I feel like this is something he should have had more of a conversation with instead of just coming out and just I'm going to start ripping into you and saying all this stuff and how you don't like being a black man and you hate yourself and all this other stuff. And I'm like, this is something you got to talk to him instead of jumping to conclusions. But he also shows how many people jumped right on that train, jumped on it. Some of them believe it. Some of them, like I said, are genuine. Some of them aren't. I have followed Comics Explained for a while. I actually found him through Comic Story, and Comic Story was one of the first ones I actually really jumped on YouTube and followed, and I love comic books and stuff like that. I have a humongous collection of comics and stuff I'm still trying to get through, and I'm trying to make that a part of my channel, reviewing comics and things I like and my ideas and sharing the things and all different types. I support a lot of crowdfundings and everything. I want comic books to super succeed. And I've never put Rob to be racist and that he hated himself for being black. And it's weird to me because I've heard Rob hype up black characters. I've heard him. He loves the Storm comic. He's always constantly complaining about how Blue Marvel's not in there. He talks about how he likes Miles Morales like all the time. So I'm like, where are we getting this narrative that he doesn't like black characters from? It's just weird because I constantly hear him talk about Blue Marvel. I agree with him about Blue Marvel. But then it's funny because I'm getting like, because he doesn't like certain universe, because in that thing, he also, because I went back and watched that video that blerd was referring to. It's interesting how they skipped the fact that he also said he didn't like Transformers, except for like, I think it was like Hell Megatron. And he also didn't like G.I. Joe stories. But they specifically zeroed in on that to show, well, because you said this, that means you're this. And that to me is a disingenuous argument. That's you cutting things to make it so it's a confirmation narrative kind of thing. He doesn't cover it like all the time, like Milestone or whatever. I think he has covered some Milestone actually. The funny thing is that it makes it that he hates his own race. Like that doesn't make sense. Like, I don't talk about everything and all the politics and stuff on my channel because I'm going to go with what I like or what something interests me or I feel compelled to talk about. And he shouldn't have to cover something that he doesn't want to, because doing that means he's chasing a thing and that's going to cause you burnout. And sometimes just doing this stuff alone will make you burn out. I take breaks and stuff because I have other stuff going on in life. I mean, it'd be different if it was my job, but it's not. I don't get paid for YouTube. I just share my opinion because some people was like, hey, maybe you should share your opinions. Maybe you should talk. And I was like, okay, yeah, maybe I should and show off some stuff. Maybe I'll get some cool things and maybe help some folks out or something. And I think I've done some okay stuff on my YouTube channel. But another problem I have is just because someone follows someone, especially like on Twitter or anything, doesn't mean they agree with what they say or 100% agree. We live in this world where everyone's like, you got 100% agree with everything I say or you're a terrible human being. And that's stupid. We keep doing this whole monolith mentality that everyone has to agree with everything I say 100% of the time. If you don't, then you're not for the culture, you're not for this, or you're not left-leaning people, you're not a good Democrat, you're not a good Republican, this is stupid and people need to grow up. First off, this is America and people need to remember it's America. You are allowed to have opinions and you are allowed to have differing opinions. Just because somebody follows something, sometimes you might follow just to see what the heck they're talking about. And to have knowledge of the other side. Sometimes it's about people you don't agree with and you want to see what they're saying. Sometimes it's, you might see certain things that you say, hey, you know what? This person does say something. And there is a reason why the term is called a broken clock is right twice a day. Because sometimes a person will say something, but it actually could be something that's right, even if it's from a different kind of place. I personally think this was blown way out of proportion and honestly should have been a conversation I think Blerd and him should have had privately. Now, if this was something more that was like, like he was saying stuff or anything, but this conversation didn't even come close to having all the stuff. Like Blerd took little things and just ran with it and then made up this narrative thing. I just don't feel that way. Now I'm gonna get out the car and I'm gonna finish this video from the other side. I think there are some more things. Now there are some things that I caught when I watched Blerd's video a couple of times that I said, now I will admit it's crazy because Rob's reaction video for 16 minutes was the stuff that I noticed too. So I do apologize. It's going to sound like I'm repeating it, but actually, like I said, I noticed this when I talked to my boy and stuff. So be back. Geek protagonist. I'm going to give you a heads up now. Spider-Gwen, because she's going to be hanging low because this joint's kind of long. And I didn't do my tripod and stuff. I'm using a different thing. So to continue with my video from before, and I'm going to give you a heads up again. This is probably going to ruffle some feathers. Some of you are not going to agree with me. Some of you are. The thing is that people forget that you're allowed to have an opinion. And that's sometimes how things work. And I do apologize. I don't have my mic thing because it's too far. But it's kind of interesting when I seen this blerd piece, right? And he was saying stuff about how Rob doesn't cover like black characters or something. Yet I've seen Rob multiple times talk about Blue Marvel, how he wants him in the MCU. Just to give an example, he's talked highly of Miles and other characters. Now, it seemed like when that didn't work so well, blerd on this increased what he said, which was then he was like he followed the way it was like neurotic, critical drinker. Even though I've seen Rob make fun of hate channels before, I even seen him and JDA talk. They had a little spat for a bit because Rob didn't like something that he said because he follows JDA talks. But, blerd ignored that part. And I also noticed that blerd went harder on him than he did Tyrone Magnus, than he did like Young Rippa or anything, like that, which to me, Eric July is a libertarian and a lot of his beliefs fall under libertarian beliefs and certain things and tokens. And I've seen, and I can admit this, because I follow all types of comic book channels. But you wouldn't get this if you didn't, but I do. I follow people who talk about them. And guess what? Oh no, I guess I hate my blackness too because I follow Nerdrotic, I follow Geeks and Gamers, I follow Young Rippa, Eric July, which is hilarious because I've seen Eric July actually change his opinion on Miles. He used to talk about how Miles was this great character, but when the grift went to the hating thing, all of a sudden he shifted gears. Now Miles is a token. Guess what? I also follow blerd. Without Fear. I follow Dope Spills. I follow Kicking It with Comics. I follow Comics Drake. I follow all of them because they have different opinions on it and come from different angles. And I don't agree with every single person. I follow Comics by Perch. Think It Critical. Because you know why? Nobody's 100% right. That's the whole thing. And that's the part that's that kind of gets on my nerves. Because people are like, well, you don't need to follow this. If you go through that, when you like where blerd was like, well, I don't need to follow them. If you have to follow white supremacists, then that's it. Blah 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 blah. No, that means you're in an echo chamber, which means you think you're right all the time. You have to hear the other side's argument also when they say some wild stuff, or like I said, I call Eric July and a change on how his opinion was about Miles when the grift was there. A lot of these people like Nerdrotic and these guys, there is a level that they push, and then there's a level they're not. And one of the things that got me was the fact that first, y'all, like a bunch of these black folks who I follow throughout different stuff, and I got respect for. So, but you're being corny. Oh, Rob don't like Milestone, and he thought it was FUBU. FUBU was a big thing. And guess what? I know this is going to hurt your feelings. From a person who likes Milestone. I don't think all of Milestone's line is good. Uh-oh, I didn't like something from Milestone. I guess I hate my blackness now? Most people that is even jumping all over this can't name 8 Milestone characters outside of Static. If you keep Static here and say, randomly, name 8 Milestone characters. A whole bunch of you can't. Sorry, you don't know how I know? Because I've actually tested this before. When I've seen some others, I'm like, hey, can you name 8 Milestone characters that aren't excluding Static? Most can't. Now, when he talked about the significance, and here's the thing, I'm not saying I agree with him, but I understood what he was saying. He was basically saying that there is a significance to Milestone, which he did say that in his video, that hit piece. I find it interesting how so many people go, well, maybe because he wasn't around the black community, maybe because of, I know a bunch of black people who didn't read Milestone. They only know Static Shock. They don't even know it's a whole thing. It's sad. I think Milestone definitely has a lot to offer. And he also mentioned Transformers. He also meant how he didn't like that. He also mentioned G.I. Joe. But that part seems to get ignored, and people keep going, well, you're supposed to follow who we tell you to follow. That's what you're basically saying. So you're saying that on his channel, on his personal stuff, that he should do what you tell him to do. Who the hell are you to tell somebody what to do and who to follow? And the reason why I'm annoyed by that is because I'm sick and tired of people telling Americans what to do. Oh, well, he's a centrist, and centrists are that means you're okay with the status quo. No, that's not what you see. I'm starting to learn that a lot of people who lean hard left don't understand how words work, apparently. When you say a centrist is a moderate. With that person, I'm a centrist. I don't think everybody on the left is all right all the time and they're just got the best things and interests and all that stuff because of the things they say. I don't believe everybody on the right has all the right answers either. As my grandmother said multiple times to me, if you go hard on one side when it comes to politics, 50% of the time you are wrong. Because what it means is you're not willing to hear what the other person is saying and you're not finding a common ground. This is America. America's not built on one side. And when people are like, well, what can a white supremacist say? Do y'all understand what the difference is? Because I've noticed that when I see people talk and they'll then try to discredit someone's argument if they're of a certain persuasion, they'll be like, well, you don't understand. This is black folk business. Well, here's a black person telling you. Pick up a dictionary and learn what the word means. A supremacist is like a KKK person. Now, if you want to say someone is racist or have racist tendencies, yes, that is not a supremacist. A supremacist is a much further extreme. Just like I find it interesting how, Ernie, who is definitely a left-leaning person, was okay with Charlie Kirk being, when he talked about, when he covered the thing with the writer that I talked about from the Red Hood. He was like, they didn't do nothing wrong with that. They did it wrong here. Because he called him a Nazi. Do y'all know what a Nazi is? Charlie Kirk, if you want to go, he's racist. Okay. That's not a Nazi. The Nazi is a whole different level. We have Nazis in the world. And that's something I've noticed is this hyperbolic language and this whole thing of holding and doing and doing stuff. Now, I'm going to say this too. In this particular instance, I think every person that dogpiled, I feel like some of them are genuine. They're really upset. They do believe this and stuff. And I actually respect that. You are allowed to believe it. Some of you are grifting. And I don't think Ernie's heart is in the wrong place. But there's a lot of things that I've noticed when people are saying, well, the black community, you wouldn't grow up around a black. You don't know who Rob grew up around or what like. So how are you going to tell him what it is because he doesn't like Milestone? He didn't sit there and say Milestone is trash. He didn't sit there and say anything like he does with the Inhumans. And the fact that I find it interesting that so many black people are agitated that he compared it to FUBU, even though FUBU was a major movement in the black community. I have FUBU clothes. For us, by us. By the way, Blue Marvel was created by Kevin Guerrero, a black guy that he glazes, but apparently he doesn't like anything that black people do, even though he pushes that character all the time, but, and Miles Morales was made by a Jewish person, but who has black daughters, that he's adopted. But once again, he has to be a supremacist. He has to hate his blackness. Look at his picture. First, one of the things that killed me too was the fact that Ernie was like, well, most of his fan base is white who listens to his videos. How do you know that? I make YouTube. I can see if it's the gender. I can see what state the person may have watched in. I can even see around what time of day they did. It doesn't tell me what race they are. But people keep focusing on, well, he disrespected Milestone. So what? He had an opinion you don't agree with. I don't agree with his opinion. That doesn't mean that makes him something because he didn't like a black line. And what's really interesting is that some of these people that are talking, I'm very curious because I see all these people in different comments. I didn't watch every, I just kind of peek, right? And they're all like, yeah, I'm about Milestone. I'm about Milestone. Okay, so if you're all about Milestone, why does the sales keep not doing well? And they have to keep like trying to reintroduce it again and they take a break and do something. if because as many comments as I've seen of people swearing that they're all about Milestone, and some of them genuine. I'm not saying everybody's lying, but the math ain't mathing. I buy Milestone books. I have some of the old school books. Funny thing is, I had Milestone before I knew about Static's TV show where they updated them. Because the thing I thought was cool was I saw this electrical character with a Malcolm X hat on. And back in that time, I had a Malcolm X hat. So that's how I resonated. And I don't normally resonate with people just because of the skin color or whatever like that. But that particular time, I thought that was really cool. And I thought the story was cool. But I don't have a lot of the original Milestones, but I have some. And what's up with people doing this whole black people aren't a monolith? I've noticed... I keep seeing, like I said, I've watched a few channels where they're like, black people aren't a monolith, but you have a responsibility to like big up the black people. Then you're saying black people are a monolith. So if I do when I start doing comics, if I don't cover black characters or brown skin characters or other characters on a thing because maybe I don't want to, let's just say, that makes me a self-hating person. Maybe those comics don't resonate with me. Maybe I have a certain type. I'm just saying. Now, I do read black characters. I read all types of comic books. I don't normally look at the race and go, oh, this is a black guy, or this is a gay person, or this is this, or this is that. I learned that lesson about myself, actually, even more recently, because there was a thing I did where if they had certain keywords, when they would like do descriptions, I wouldn't be interested. And then what ended up happening, I said, well, that's not good. Like, they're like, oh, we made this specifically this way because usually these type of stories go a certain way. But then what I did was I said, wait, you know what, if it's an independent comic book person, or if it's their first comic, or if it is something, maybe they have a passion about it. Let me look more into it. And that's when I do, so that's how I do some of the crowdfunding and stuff like that. It's one of those things I do look at. But this was a hit piece. I'm sorry. And every person is jumping on it because he doesn't like Milestone. Now, like one dude, I remember Spawn something. I can't remember his name. But he's a YouTuber. He had like a Black Panther, like, you know, or character. Yeah, he's a guy got a tight t-shirt on. But he was, I liked his video. I do apologize. I can't remember his full name. It was like Spawn something. I've recently followed him. He did a video thing. I remember talking about like cosplay, and I really liked that. He was on Instagram. And he said that what gave him the ick was Rob's opinion about Milestone. But he also said he thinks because of just how Rob was, the culture that he grew around up with, that's just his speculation. And that could be a fair speculation. But I feel like with this thing where Ernie's like making up all of these things, if you had that major of a problem, you should have did that behind closed doors. What you did, you're like, well, I'm going to call him out because he's not doing what I say he should do. Who are you to tell him what he needs to do? And once again, getting back to my monolith thing. So why is it that every black person in any form of entertainment has to represent all black people? One black person does something you don't like and they ruined it for all black people. Like, this is the stupid argument. Now, if you don't want to follow Rob, if you think he was, because some people's like, I knew he was the whole time, then why were you following him at all? But if you're sitting there and you're like, I don't like this, I don't like his opinion, and that opinion is a straw that broke the camel's back, I understand, and I'm saying do it. Because yes, you're right, you are allowed, and it's awesome that you can have the choice to do that. I don't read Ta-Nehisi Coates' comic books. Why? Because he talked about how we deserved it in 9/11. And that's a straw breaker for me over anything else. And there was another comic book creator that did a G.I. Joe book that said something about New York and stuff like that. And I don't follow that. And I was thinking that maybe Rob should sit down and talk with her. But then I was like, nah, this dude just showed you his colors on this particular subject. And once again, that doesn't mean that Ernie is all bad. And some people are like, well, he called them out. Guess what? I follow him too. Uh-oh. Now you're going to tell me I don't like my blackness, or because I'm a centrist, because I don't think one side is 100% right all the time. And the people who go, in 2026, you're supposed to be this side or that side, you're fence sitting because you're okay with the status quo. No, what those people are doing, you know what centrists are? Centrists are people who are smart enough to realize that an echo chamber creates radicalists. And when you think you are 100% right, you see what some people say, and they'll say something and they kind of expose themselves. And they don't always think it through, and they think everybody agrees with them. And then when it backfires, it's like, well, I don't understand. Why does this backfire? When people say some stuff, like I said, what happened with the Charlie Kirk thing when these people were losing their jobs and stuff. They're like, I don't understand. I thought everybody agreed with me. No. Even if a president was voted in by, like, let's say 56%, right? Out of 100. If you take that 56% and you minus 100 out of that, right? What do you get? What's that? Like 44, 45, 44. 44% of people are. That's nearly half. That means there's a ton of people who don't agree with you. And then there's a bunch of people who kind of want to see how things work out. They want to hear what's best for it. And that's something that I am so sick and tired of with creators and black and things. And they're like, well, he's supposed to. Then they go, well, he doesn't have to, but he has a responsibility to. He has a responsibility to nothing. There's no social contract or something. He talks about comic books that he likes. A lot of them happen to be Marvel and DC. So what? Most people don't read anything but Marvel and DC. It's the same thing with wrestling. Most people only watch AEW or WWE, but most people watch WWE. They don't even acknowledge the other wrestling. That's just the way the world works. The top things create the top stuff. You know how many people watch the NFL but don't watch the CFL or any other sport? They don't watch the minors. They watch the majors. That's how it works. Now, what you hope is that it gets you into other comics. But most people's comic books are gateways. And I have this thing that Rob's whole thing is that he wants to hear what the other side has to say. And there's also the saying that a broken clock is right twice a day, people. Sometimes their opinions are actually rooted in something there. Now, of course, they can go left very easily, like how it is. But sometimes there is a disingenuous. I've seen videos where geeky gamers and they were talking about something was purely disingenuous, and it was, and it showed. That doesn't mean that now I'm their best friend, or I sit there and I watch everything and say, yeah, everything they say and do is awesome. I acknowledge that they don't do everything right. But here's the funny thing. I also acknowledge that the other side of people who think they're 100% against them don't do everything right either. Now, Blerd on his channel loves talking, he's constantly talking about black politics, black. And guess what? That's actually part of the reason why I follow his channel. Because when I'm in the mood to hear some stuff about that, or want to see if I miss something, because he'll catch some cool stuff sometimes. And he's knowledgeable, especially about a lot of black characters. I actually love that because not a lot of people are. They don't realize how many awesome X-Men characters are or something like that. When I mention to people that one of my favorite X-Men characters is Enole, and I'm probably saying his name wrong, but I always call him Enole. They look at me probably like, who the heck is that? Love that character. I like some obscure characters too. I like Elsa. I have a love for Elsa Bloodstone. She's my favorite monster, and I think she's cooler than Blade. She's like literally my favorite like monster hunter in all of comic books. So you see what I'm saying? And I feel like Blerd is trying to gatekeep because he's like, well, I don't do this and I don't do that. Okay. You don't do that. You like being in your echo chamber. Like I said, one of the things that did turn me off was you were okay with what happened to Charlie Kirk for having a difference of an opinion. He never put a hand on somebody. He never did something. Like I said, did Charlie Kirk say some stupid stuff from time to time? Sure. I ain't denying that either. But you were okay with what happened to him for having a difference of an opinion. That's an echo chamber radical thing. Now, and before some people go, no, he didn't. Go back and watch a video where he talks about, like when we were talking about, like I said, the one because I refuse to give the person any more clout. But the thing about Red Hood, and when the Red Hood comic got canceled, he didn't have a problem with what happened. He thought that what she did wasn't wrong at all. That she should have celebrated it. But y'all will sit there, but you'll get offended about Rob for not liking a fictional character line. Yes, it was with black people and stuff. And I mean, I got more, like I said, I got love for Milestone. Milestone did some cool stuff. But I seen like some people go, oh, well, Milestone did more for comics than Rob Explained ever did. Comics Explained ever did. There's people who I know that actually started reading comics again because of Comics Explained. He, just like Blerd and all of them, you help the community when you do this content. And some people can say, oh, well, I'm jumping and I'm defending Rob all the time, or I'm fence sitting or something, whatever. You know what? You can say whatever you want. It's what I say. So you don't tell me what I do. You don't tell me my opinion. I tell you my opinion and what I do. And I'm sick and tired of people saying, well, they mean this. No, I told you what I meant. Once again, I don't think Ernie is 100% a bad guy. with this. I think in this particular instance, he wanted some of Rob's audience. And because Rob didn't toe the line the way he wanted him to, he decided, well, I'm going to blast him and I'm going to make him lose some of his audience. And I noticed that a lot of people do that, and then they suggest other black content creators and other black social media YouTubers and stuff like that. And in that aspect, I'm going to say that that's actually a positive, as funny as that sounds, because there are some really good content creators. Like I said, Dope Spills is one. Kicking It with Comics. There's a bunch of others. There's a guy, David, explaining. He has like a TV head. I love, or Dan explains or something. I love his things because it's like he's the TV head targeting. His shorts are, I don't know, I just love his shorts. But you see what I'm saying? But it's just one of these things where, when did it become Blerd's job to police who Rob's follow, or anybody's job for who Rob follows, whatever? And there's a ton of people that follow stuff. I know people who are left leaning that follow Fox News and follow Donald Trump, not because they love him. They want to hear what they're saying so they know what's going on. That's how some people stay informed. You don't have to, but that doesn't mean you get to tell someone that they do, or you're formulating a whole opinion because you think that because they even, oh my God, they even touched them. You know what that is? That's the same thing when a comic book creator or something, or somebody on one of these channels or something, you talk about something, you may talk about a comic book, and because that person has the wrong think, because they decided to be a Republican or something, you all of a sudden go, hey, be careful what you're saying. You shouldn't say that. Oh, that's the problem. You're gatekeeping. This is America. Who are you to tell people who they're supposed to follow or not? Especially after they explain themselves. He follows it because he wants to hear that other side. He doesn't want to be in an echo chamber. And that's, to me, the best way to be. But if you do decide to, as long as you're not hurting anybody, hey, that's okay too. Do your thing. I don't understand when people keep doing this great responsibility thing. It's not his responsibility. He never said, hey, I'm a channel that does this. He talks about comics that he likes. And I'm sick and tired of black people saying you got to represent the culture, you got to represent everything just because you do something or because you're black. And that doesn't mean I'm diminishing our experiences, doing other things. I've said some political things on my channel before, few and far between. But I have said something when something feels really compelling to move me. Like, for example, ICE was recently in my area and scared some kids away. I don't like what ICE is doing. They've turned that something that was supposed to be lawbreakers, a citizen, like people who weren't citizens who were coming over illegally and not going through the proper channels, and they've turned into a Gestapo hit squad. And I think that's insane. And the fact that people are letting it happen, yes, I know people are protesting, but in this particular instance, there seems like there needs to be more than that. Maybe people need to start going to their congressmen and everyone else and be like, listen, if we don't do this, we're not voting for you next time. You're cooked. When the midterms come, say bye to your job because you're not protecting us. Things like that. I'm not the one to make that judgment call on everybody and stuff either. And kind of just weird that people take all this offense because he doesn't like Milestone. So what? Like I said, he also said he didn't like Transformers. He also said he didn't like G.I. Joe. Now, I remember Blerd did this interview with Alyssa Mercanti, and I felt like, and I've noticed that when Blerd does some of his content, especially in the last couple of years, and I've actually suggested Blerd's channel to friends of mine and stuff too. Like I said, I don't think Ernie's a bad channel on there, and I don't think I think some of his things are in a place that I don't agree with, but I don't think his heart is in the wrong place, if that makes sense. But something I've caught on with Ernie and a few black creators is they also seem to go this other way where they go really hard in this one thing. And I feel like Ernie may have a bit of an issue with people from the Caucasus Mountains to some degree. Yes, I know his wife is, whatever. That doesn't matter. I've seen a lot of black folks, and I've even seen, actually, I remember there was one dude I worked with at one job, and he had a black wife, and he was Caucasian, and he had some opinions, we'll just say, and it was kind of crazy. And you find out he's married to a black woman, but his opinions, and it was like, wow, bro. So, I'm not going to fully get into the interview or whatever. What I'm basically saying is, this hit piece we don't need to have politics in every single thing to a level that it's like I can't even look at this like as if it was the news. You celebrate black skin, brown skin people. You celebrate stuff. You celebrate the trans people. You celebrate the gay people. You celebrate lesbians. You celebrate everyone. If your channel is about that, yes, great. More people need to know about these things. But if your channel is not about that, that's fine too. I even seen I can't remember the dude's channel name. Hold up. I actually was just watching it. Breakdown. There's even people jumping on him because he said he could see it from both sides. He feels as though Blerd kind of took it a little far. He feels as though Rob should do certain things, but he's not held to it too. And there's people jumping on his channel like, oh, he fence sitting and stuff. No, people can be that way. They can have that feeling. So my whole thing is, I feel like this was 100% a hit piece. I feel like there's people who are jumping on this specifically to get the clout and to get people to follow their channel, and I get it. More power to you. I feel as though, and I'm going to close this out because I know this video is running long. I feel as though that I've seen Rob. I even saw an interview he did with Ciro. Rob, there is some stuff that Rob hasn't dealt with before that I can say too. But to sit here and say that he's like this 100% bad racist person outside of who he follows. And just because you follow someone doesn't mean you agree with them. Like I said, I gave you some examples. There's people who follow Donald Trump. They do not like Donald Trump. They follow him to see what he says, and they follow to see this. What has he done that has been so much where you're like, he hates black people, he hates all this stuff because he doesn't like Milestone? Even though in that video he did say how he does understand the importance of Milestone, which I noticed a lot of creators ignored that part. He did say that. Because I went back and watched that video. He did say that. It's like, well, he disrespected Milestone. Did he call it a piece of hot garbage? Did he call it shit? Did he say that he is good only for toilet paper? That is like, people, I think, need to calm down and stop being so hyperbolic, and also stop just ripping and jumping and doing stuff. Listen to all sides. Formulate your own opinion. But don't just let somebody tell you something. Because the fact that he was like, look at his picture, that's a white guy. Like, what? Really? We nitpicking to that level? Now, I've seen some people say they're unfollowing Ernie and anybody who supports Ernie's argument. I'm not going to unfollow Ernie over the fact that in this particular instance, I think he did a hit piece. And I think he was a bit disingenuous. And I do think some of it was confusion, too. I think it was a mixture. I have noticed, like I said, the thing with Conti and everything else, I have noticed that there is some things that tells me something that he has some similarities to those other folks that he's trying to condemn. Oh, and the other last thing. Any idiot that sits there and goes, well, Rob agrees with the villain, so that makes him bad, blah, blah, blah. You do understand that villains are mainly a dark mirror of the hero? Now, sometimes you get a villain that's so fully, because it seems like people do this thing now too, where they're like, if you support this party or you support this thing, you don't understand what superheroes are. You don't understand this. Okay. And this is the thing I'm going to leave, and please take this as a lesson. Characters affect people for different ways for different reasons. If you sit there and say that every villain is always wrong, no, there's also a thing called an antagonist. So, like when they were talking about Dinosaurus. What Dinosaurus suggested would work and it would be beneficial. But here's the factor. There becomes a moral factor. If you go 100% logical, no emotions or anything like that, you can do some things. Like with Thanos' snap. Call a bunch of people and this will make other people flourish. When he did it to the one thing, he's like, this planet is now flourishing because of what he did. Because it slowed down the digression. Because he didn't think of the humanity part. That's that ethical part. That sometimes is what makes the difference between like a hero, an anti-hero, and a villain. What Dr. Doom did. And he fixed the world. But he used his own people as a sacrifice to do it. Now, morally, as a person, it's like, wow, that's so messed up. But it was the few for the many. So if you found out that if you take out one person and a thousand children will not go hungry. Every time, if you take out one person a week, or let's say one person a month, and 1,000 different children will not go hungry for that month. They will not want for nothing. Some people will say, well, no, every life is precious. Some people will go, one person and 1,000 children get to have a better life? Yeah, let's do that. It depends on perspectives. That's why Batman's a certain way versus Superman. Batman will take things to the edge. He will hurt people. He would do stuff. Superman, if he didn't have to, he won't hurt you. See what I'm saying? Everybody has a little different. So, like, my favorite Transformer is Unicron. That doesn't mean that now I'm some terrible human being because Unicron somehow resonates with me. Literally, over Optimus and everyone, I love Unicron. He just resonates with me. The type of character that he is in that particular story. I also like Red Hood. I like Red Hood actually more than Batman. Yet, one of my all-time favorite superheroes is Captain America. See what I'm saying? All these different weird angles. So all I'm saying is that instead of just being hyperbolic and jumping in, yes, if you don't want to follow one of them or the other for whatever reasons, go for it. But can we please stop with the whole Rob is this racist, self-hating black thing just because he doesn't agree with what Ernie says or what you think the black experience would be, even though there's differences to it depending on where you live, where you're from, who you're around. All of these things do play a difference because where I live and where you live, we probably have similar experiences, but we might have some different experiences. I think people need to calm down. This got blown up way more out of proportion than it is, and this is the only time I'm going to talk about it. So I think it's pretty stupid, and I think people need to just enjoy the comic books and stuff. But if you have a moral standing that's against your morals, I 100% understand. Do what you feel is best. But to sit there and say Rob is some self-hating white supremacist black dude like the Dave Chappelle thing is erroneous and stupid. And I think in this particular time, Ernie did this because he was clout chasing. And he wanted to gatekeep. Now, there's other times I think Ernie's right when he called out Tyrone Magnus and a few of the other guys. 100% he was on it. 100%. He was like, yeah, I was like, actually, I see what he's doing. So, like I said, I don't think either one is evil or anything. I think this is just one of those things that two people are kind of just having a mishap and some misunderstandings and is a little messed up. But Geek Protagonists, you stay safe, you stay healthy, you stay real, and I'll see ya.